This is a 16 kilowatt off-grid cabinet. We pre-installed two off-grid inverters, 8 kilowatt each. As you can see, the inverters are connected in parallel. This one is the master inverter, the indication HS is flashing, and this is the secondary inverter with indication SL. When you switch on or off the system, you always have to check that both inverters, they are in parallel mode. The SL and the HS should be flashing all the time. If you don't see this indication, we don't advise you to switch on the AC output of the inverters. That means the parallel function has failed. So it's an important part of systems that work in parallel. Now let's start from this side. This is the fuse connection from the inverter to the batteries. And there is another one from the inverter to the batteries with 200 amp fuses. Both DC links are connected together to a common bus bar. That's the negative and that's the positive. And from this bus bar, we feed the energy back to the lithium-ion batteries. In our case, we have just a single battery. If you decided to go with Pylontech, remember the first Pylontech battery is always the master battery. And we connect this cable and no other cable, only this particular cable to the RS485 port. And the dip switch 1 needs to be moved down. Switches 2, 3 and 4 remain at the default settings. That's only for the master battery. The second, third, fourth, etc., they should remain unchanged. The other end of the BMS cable is connected to the battery port here. This is the control port for the battery. That's the one. This port is called the communication port, and we feed the data to the solar assistant controller. So this inverter is feeding data to the solar assistant, and the secondary inverter is also feeding data to the solar assistant controller. So that's the cable. You may get also a console cable connected back to the solar assistant. There is a spare port, a spare USB port, and that means the controller here will monitor the data of all your devices, the batteries and the inverters. This is the input to the system. If you have a backup generator or a grid connection, this is controlled by this relay. That's the AC input MCB, and here is the AC input terminals. They are pre-wired in a single phase mode. So the top socket is connected to the grid and nowhere else. You shouldn't connect any other loads to the top socket. The bottom socket is the AC output, is a 16 kilowatt AC output. And this output is connected back to the consumer unit or the switchboard of your property. You shouldn't connect the input to the output or the output to the input at any time. The two terminals here, the two big red sockets, they should be always independent. Like we don't mix the neutral of the input with the neutral of the output. They are completely decoupled, the two neutrals. Let's continue our guidance. This is a thermostat. It's going to start the cooling fan. If you operate the cabinet with the doors open, you don't have to worry about this. You can set the temperature to 25-30 degrees. This is a voltage and frequency relay. If there is an abnormal voltage from the generator and an abnormal frequency, this is going to stop. This is going to deactivate the incoming power supply. On this side, we have the protection of the solar array. Your first inverter has two independent MPPTs, MPPT 1 and 2, and further on the right hand side we have the second inverter and the MPPT protection. That's for the solar PV 1 and PV 2. The maximum PV input is 450 volts, and you need the minimum of 6 to 7 panels in series to start one of these inverters. So make sure that you measure the voltage of the panels before you connect it to the inverter. And that's the input from PV PV1 and PV2. So you have 4 MPPTs here, as you can see, 4 independent MPPTs. And at this point, this is the AC output MCB 40 amps, and the AC output number 2, another 40 amps from the secondary inverter. That's the input from the AC input of the second inverter and the AC input of the secondary inverter. This is how we wired the inverters internally. You don't have to change any of the cables. They are all fixed. There is no need to alter any wiring. That's the incoming power supply, and that's the output, AC input, AC output, battery terminals, and that's our nice touch screen here. You can set the menu in the master and the slave inverter. The most common type, the most common operation is solar battery and utility. And I have to apply the same on the slave inverter. Whatever changes you do on inverter 1, you have to apply in the inverter 2 as well. So let's enter the menu here, show you how it works. That's it. Now the master inverter in menu 5, that's a very important parameter. In menu 5, it must be set to PYL, that means pylon tech. And on the secondary inverter, menu 5 should be user, USE mode. That way the inverters communicate with the BMS of your lithium-ion battery. So that is how it works. If you have any doubts, please contact us and we will try to assist you. Thank you.